we will start with phrasal verbs. We all know what phrasal verbs are. So what are phrasal verbs? It is in modern English, it is very usual to place prepositions or adverbs after certain verbs. Example, give, look. These are verbs. We usually place adverbs or prepositions after them so that it obtains a variety of meanings. For example, give away. So give away becomes give to someone or anyone. So give away, that particular phrase derives a certain meaning. So a verb followed by a preposition or an adverb becomes a meaningful phrase. So those are called phrasal verbs. Why verbs? Because it is followed, this preposition or adverb, they follow a certain verb. For example, give is a verb or look is a verb, and that becomes a phrase. Give away then becomes a phrase. So it's a phrasal verb which has a particular meaning. Give away is equal to give to someone or anyone. Give up becomes to abandon. Okay, a habit or attempt. Look after is take care of. Like that. There are other phrasal verbs as well. Now the position does matter. The student does not need to understand whether the combination is of a verb or preposition or verb or adverb. That is not important. What is important is to understand the meaning of the expression. It can be transitive or intransitive. For example, look out, look for is transitive because you are looking for something. In this sentence, I am looking for my passport. So this becomes a transitive verb. This becomes transitive, while look out is intransitive. That means it does not need a certain object. Like look out, this ice isn't safe. So look out does not have an object. So each of the following combinations are meaningful. That is most important here. So we now move on to 363. See here, the first one will start with account. Account for. TR means transitive. Give a good reason for or explain satisfactorily some action or expenditure. For example, if you better understand if you put that phrase into a sentence. For example, a treasurer must account for the must account for the money he spends. He must give an explanation for the money he spends. So account for. Next, he has behaved in the most extraordinary manner. I can't account for his actions at all. He has behaved in the most extraordinary manner, and I can't account for his actions at all. That means I can't explain his actions. I can't account for his behaving like this. I do not have a satisfactory explanation as to why he behaved like that. So how do I put it in a sentence? Using account for. I can't account for his behaving like this. Allow for. Make provision in advance for or take into account. Usually some additional requirement or expenditure or delay. It is 800 kilometers and I drive at 100 kilometers per hour. So I'll be there in 8 hours. But you have to allow for delays. That is, make provision for in advance. Allow for delays going through towns and for stops for refueling. That means the person knows that he can drive the car at 100 kilometers per hour, but you have to allow for delays. Why will the delays be? Because of maybe that person will stop to refuel the tank. Allow for means make provisions for. You have to make provision in advance that that particular place might whatever I'm expecting, it may be delayed because of those things. So I have to make provisions for that in advance. So I'm allowing for. Allowing for depreciation. Your car should be worth. Allowing for depreciation. Everything is depreciation asset. Depreciating asset means it decreases in value. Whatever electronic product, suppose you buy it now, after a few years when you want to sell it, you won't get anything, like you'll get a negligible price. So these are depreciating assets. So allowing for depreciation, your car will be worth £2,000 this time next year after depreciation, allowing for depreciation. Now answer back becomes an intransitive phrase. Answer someone back. Answer a reproof impudently, like, why were you so last night? You weren't in till 2 a.m. You should have been asleep. Father, don't answer me back. Answer my question. That means, don't you dare show your impudence by answering me back. Okay, you are not in the position to answer me back, or you're not in the position to back chat, what we normally say. So don't answer me back. It's a dialogue given between a father and the son to explain that particular phrase. The father says, why you are late? You weren't there till 2 a.m. The son says, why you should have been asleep. Father says, don't answer me back. Instead of answering me where were you were asking me that you should have been asleep. Don't answer me back. So the father scolds the son for his impudence. Now ask after for somebody. Ask for news of. You asking for news. I met Tom at the party. He asked after you. That means he asked for you. Asked how you were getting on. So asked after you, or ask for somebody. Okay. Next examples, like then we have other things like ask for. Other things are there. Ask to speak to, like go to the office and ask for my secretary. That means you want to speak to the secretary, so ask for her. Then request or demand. Ask. The men asked for more pay and shorter work. Here the men asked for means the men demanded or they requested for more pay and shorter hours. Shorter hours means what? Shorter hours of work. Ask someone in. The object before in. Ask someone in. Invite him to enter the house. He didn't ask me in. That means he did not invite me inside. He kept me standing at the door while he read the message. So he didn't ask me in. That means he didn't invite me inside. Ask someone out. Okay. Invite someone to an entertainment or a meal. Usually in a public place. She had a lot of friends and was usually asked out in the evenings. So she seldom spent an evening at home. That means this person was usually invited by someone to a particular meal or an entertainment. That means this girl here who we are talking about has a lot of friends, and therefore she was very popular and she was usually asked out or invited. Okay. Back away. Back away is step or move back slowly because they are confronted by some danger or some kind of unpleasantness. When he took a gun out, everybody backed away nervously. It means stepped back. Okay. Because here the reaction was out of fear. Backed out. The back away is there. Then back out. Withdraw from some joint action previously agreed on. That means whatever you agreed on, whatever promises you made, you simply back out. That means you don't want to keep it any longer. You discontinue or refuse to provide previously promised help. Whatever you promised before, you don't want to carry it now. So you withdraw your support as well. So you simply back out. He agreed to help but backed out when he found how difficult it was. So he had agreed before to help, but at the last moment he backed out. Why? Because he found that he would not be able to do it because whatever he promised was very difficult, and maybe he did not understand that previously, so he promised, but now he simply backs out, wants to back out. Back somebody up. That means to support somebody mentally or verbally. The headmaster never backed up his staff. That means he never supported his staff. If a parent complained about a teacher, he assumed that the teacher was in the wrong. That means the headmaster never backed his staff. He never stood for or supported his staff. Whenever someone came and complained against a teacher, he simply would acknowledge that his teacher might be in the wrong. So he never backed up, he never supported. Okay. Next, be against. Now we'll start with be. Be against. Be opposed to, often with gerund. So you are opposing something. I'm for doing nothing till the police arrive. I'm against doing anything till the police arrive. I'm for doing nothing till the police arrive, or you can say that I'm against doing anything until the police arrive. Means I oppose to do anything till the police arrive. Maybe there was some police matter, something that needs police intervention. So the person does not want to involve himself in that business till the police comes around, till the police is around. So he simply says, I'm against doing anything. Next, be away. Be away from home for at least a night. Okay, this place, be away from home, or be away from this place for at least a night. Be back. Have returned after a long or short absence. I want to see Mrs. Pitt. Is she in? No. Again, see, there's a conversation here. No, I'm afraid she's out at the moment. Or, no, I'm afraid she's away for the weekend. When will she be back? See, be back is being used. She'll be back in half an hour. Or you can say she'll be back by next week. So now, be back. When will she be back? That means when will she return? After, maybe that person is absent for this present moment, has gone somewhere for a short period of time or for a longer period of time. But when will she be back means when will she return. Be for. Be in favor of. Often used with a gerund. Okay. Be in, or be at home, or be in this building. Be in for. Be about to encounter. Usually something unpleasant. Did you listen to the weather forecast? I'm afraid we are in for a bumpy ride. We are in for. We are in for a bumpy ride means maybe they are traveling by an airplane, and suppose there's a storm coming around. So they might face these air pockets, which is usually turbulent. So he says that, did you hear the weather forecast? I'm afraid we are in for a bumpy flight. I read ride, it's flight. If you think that the work is going to be easy, you're in for a shock. You're in for something. Be in for. That means you're in for a shock. That means you'll understand that it is not so. That if you think that work is easy, then you're going to get a shock. That means you are in for a shock. Be over. That means be finished. The storm is over now. We can go on. So we all understand there are three main auxiliaries we do have, and we has many forms. Is, as, is, am, was, were. These are all and others. I'm just saying a few. These are all forms of be. So to understand, be over. That means be finished. The storm is over. We can go home. Be over is over here, form of be. That's why I said there are various forms. Be out. Be away from home, or be away from this building for a short time, not overnight. Be up. Be out of bed. Like, don't expect her to answer the doorbell at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. She won't be up. That means she will not be awake. That means she will still be in her bed sleeping. Understood? Not being out of bed means still in bed sleeping. The next one, be up to. Be physically or intellectually strong enough to perform a certain action. The object is usually intransitive, though a gerund is possible. Now, after his illness, the minister continued in office, though he was no longer up be up to, see, no longer up to the work, doing to the work, up to doing the work. No longer up to the work or up to doing the work means this person is not physically or intellectually strong enough to continue that amount of work. So after the illness, this particular minister, maybe he is not so healthy enough to continue his work, also no longer up to the work. Now, be up to something or some mischief or some trick. This is what we usually use. Be occupied or busy with some mischievous act. Don't trust him. He's up to something or some trick. Don't trust him. That means he's actually up to some kind of mischief, up to something, up to some trick, up to some kind of mischief. The boys are very quiet. I wonder what they are up to. That means what they are doing. Usually a small child, the child is usually busy doing something or the other. They usually make a lot of noise. They run about, they shout, they jump, they yell. But when a child is very quiet, you have to understand that particular child is doing something very fishy. That means that particular child is up to something, up to some mischief. So here said the boys are very quiet. I wonder what they are up to. Note that the object of up to here is always some very indefinite expression, such as these given below. It is never used with a particular action. It is up to someone, often followed by an infinitive. It is his responsibility or duty, like it is up to the government. Here it's used like this. It is up to the government to take action. So up to someone, or that means often used followed by an infinitive. It is up to the government to take action on violence, to take. So I have helped you as much as I can. Now it is up to you. So you must continue by your own efforts. Bear out. It is transitive. You confirm something. This report bears out my theory. It means confirms my theory. Bears my truth out. Bears is out. Bear up. Support bad news or bravely. Hide feelings or grief. Suppose you are grievous but you don't want to show it. So, support bad news bravely. The news of her death was a great shock to him. But he bore up bravely. That means he did not want to show it. He bore it bravely. And none of us realized how much he felt it. So, the news that he had received, he hid his grief. He supported the bad news bravely. That means he bore up the news of his wife's death. Blow out, or extinguish by blowing. The wind blew out the candle. Blew the candle out, or blew it out. Blew up, destroy by explosion. Explode or to destroy. They blew up the bridge so that the enemy couldn't follow them. That means the bridge was exploded so that the enemy could not cross over. Just as we got to the bridge, it blew up. Just as we got to the bridge, they were about to cross when the bridge blew up. Fill with air or inflate or pump up. Suppose balloons. The children blew up their balloons. That means they inflated it and threw them into the air. Blew the balloon up. Blew them up. And one more is exploded. Next, boil away. Be boiled until all the liquid has evaporated. I put the kettle on the gas ring and then went away and forgot about it. When I returned, the water had all boiled away and the flame had burnt a hole in the kettle. That means all the water boiled away. All the water was evaporated. So I'm not using evaporated. I'm simply saying had all boiled away and the flames had burnt a hole in the kettle. Boil over. To rise and flow over the sides of the container. Only of hot liquids that's possible. The milk. We usually see milk boiling over. The milk boiled over. If you don't notice it, it will boil over. The milk boiled over and there was a horrible smell of burning. And if that milk gets to the burner and there's a horrible smell that comes. So the milk boiled over and there was a horrible smell of burning. Then break down. Figures, suppose, take a total and subdivide it into various headings so as to give additional information. You say that 10,000 people use this library. Could you break that down? See, breakdown. Break that down into age group. Here, as I said, say how many of these are under 25, over 50, etc. You want to classify the age group that come to the library. So you break that down. That means break the figure down. Break down a door, etc. Cause to collapse by using a foe. You kick down a door. The fireman had to break down the door. Somebody must be trapped in, so he had to break down the door to get into the burning house. Break the door down. Break it down. Break down, collapse, cease to function properly, owing to some fault or some kind of weakness. Like, suppose use of people. It normally implies a temporary emotional collapse. He broke down when telling me about his son's tragic death. It means he started crying. He vented out his feelings. That means he was saying, but he couldn't go any further. He broke down. He broke down. He was overcome by sorrow. He wept. It can express collapse or mental resistance. Mental resistance. Suppose at first he refused to admit his guilt, but when he was shown the evidence, he broke down and confessed. Suppose it's a kind of collapse of mental. That person had decided somehow not to own up, not to accept his guilt, but when he was shown the evidence, he broke down. He gave up. His mental resistance that he had collapsed suddenly. So he broke down and confessed to his guilt. When used of health, it implies a serious physical collapse. After years of overwork, his health broke down because he kept on working and his health eventually broke down and he had to retire. So it is the breaking down of physical health, physical collapse. It is very often used of machines as well. The car broke down when we were driving through the desert and it took us 2 days to repair it. So the car broke down. It's a machine which broke down. It can be used of negotiations as well. The negotiations broke down. That means were discontinued. That means stopped midway because neither side would wanted to compromise. Neither side would compromise. So the negotiations had to break down or to discontinue. Break in or break into. Enter by force. We use that very often. Thieves broke in and stole the silver. That means they broke a forced entry. The house was broken into when the owner was on holiday. That means when the owner was away, the thieves broke into the house. Interrupt somebody by some sudden remark, like I was telling them about my travels when he broke in with a story of his own. So I was narrating something or saying, suppose I was narrating my experience to a particular group when somebody from among that group suddenly broke in to tell his own story. Then break in, or suppose you do to a young horse or pony, you train him, a young horse. Now they don't accept someone, they don't accept anyone to sit on their back and ride them. They have to be broken in. So break in, that kind of break in. You cannot ride or drive a horse safely if before he has been broken in. You have to break that horse in. Break off, or to become detached. He took a bar of chocolate and broke off a bit. That means he broke off a portion of the chocolate. Then a piece of rock broke off and fell into the pool at the foot of the cliff. Then break off, terminate. That means Anne broke off her engagement to Tom. She broke off, she terminated, ended. Engagement is usually used of engagement. Then break off, stop talking suddenly. Interrupt oneself, like they were in the middle of an argument but broke off when somebody came into the room. They were talking about something. When somebody entered, they suddenly stopped. So they broke off. Break out. begin. It is used of evils such as war, epidemic like coronavirus. War broke out. An epidemic broke out. So war broke out on 4th July. It is used of epidemics as well. Now, escape by using force from prison. They locked him up in the room, but he broke out. So he smashed the door and he escaped. So we use force to break out. Now, the police are looking for 2 men who broke out of prison. Break up. Disintegrate, cause to disintegrate. That means to form segments. If that ship stays there, she will break up. That means she will be a wreck, broken up by the waves. The old ship was towed away to be broken up and sold as scrap. That means, why was she carried away? Because it was no longer seaworthy. It will be broken up and sold as scrap. Divorce breaks up a lot of families. It breaks up families here. So breaks them up. Break up, terminate. The school broke up on 30th July and all the boys went home for the holidays. The meeting broke up in confusion. So terminate. Use of school meetings terms, meetings, parties, etc. Bring someone round. Persuade someone to accept a previously opposed suggestion. After a lot of argument, I brought him round to my point of view. That means try to convince that person. After a lot of argument, I brought him round to my view. I kind of convinced him, persuaded him to accept my proposal. Restored to consciousness. She fainted with the pain, but the brandy soon brought her round. That means helped her regain consciousness. So brought her round. Bring a person or thing round. That is to bring him or it to his house. I finished that book that you lent me. I'll bring it round tonight. It means I'll bring that book which you gave me. So what am I bringing round? The book. Now, bring up or to train somebody, educate children. She brought up her children to be truthful. That means she nurtured, brought up, educate, train. Then mention. At the last committee meeting, the treasurer brought up the question of, that means mentioned the question of raising the annual subscription. Brought up the question, brought it up. Then burn down or destroy something completely, especially by fire. The mob burnt down the embassy. The hotel burned down before help came. So we will finish this first part of phrasal verbs now. We will continue the second part in the next class.